I am a firm believer that in order to get better at something, you need to do it a lot. If you want to get better at drawing, you need to do a lot of illustrations. If you want to get better at singing, going to karaoke probably helps out. And since I want to get better at making video games, then I need to make more video games. VTuber Jam really reinforced this for me. I entered it thinking I would crash and fall and burn given that I decided to make a Metroidvania/platformer, which is a genre I have never ever touched before. But, as I mentioned in my past devlog, it was actually the chillest game jam I have ever done. I was super happy with the end product overall, and that filled me with undue confidence. Enter the official Live2D Game Jam. As a VTuber, Live2D is an all-encompassing thing. It felt obvious to enter it as a way to marriage my game dev and VTuber interests. Sure, it would start while I was on a trip in Japan. Sure, this would be the second time in a row I'd land home from an international flight and start a game jam frame 1. But VTuber Jam worked out awesome, so surely I would have a similarly unstressful time with the Live2D Game Jam, right? Right? I joined this game jam with Minnie on art and Ven on music once again. It worked out for our last game jam, so why not try and repeat genius? There was no theme for this jam, just the requirement to use Live2D in it, so the world was our oyster. I actually don't remember how we came up with the concept itself, but I do remember how we came up with the title. As I mentioned in the last devlog, Minnie and I went to Japan for some time. On our last night, we rented out a karaoke booth and watched Doki Bird VODs with free drinks on tap instead of singing songs because we were just so exhausted. And you would think that because we were exhausted, we would go right to sleep afterwards. Nope. We stayed up past midnight talking about ideas for the game jam, even though we had to get up at 5 a.m. for our flights. But anyway, we were laying in the bed, in the dark, just being like, what if it was called Quit Your Job, Become a VTuber Fan Artist? The name stuck. During the layovers between flights was actually when I came up with the very first iteration of the protagonist. Minnie and I discussed her looking like a nerd, so I wanted to make her a cutieful little freak. Yes. Exhausted as I was in the phase of the project that I like to call the delusion era, where the weight of all I still needed to do and how much time I had in my future had yet to come crashing in on me yet. Actually, now's as good a time as any to go over what the project even was. Quit Your Job, Become a VTuber Fan Artist is a stat raiser where you do what it says in the title. You have 30 days to train your skills and make enough merch for Oshicon that you can pay rent after quitting your crappy office job because, well, your Oshi told you to. It felt like it just made sense to make a game about VTubers and VTubing fan culture for the Live2D Jam. The game was made in Godot and, well, that's where my problems began. So, to those who don't know much about Live2D, and that was me, you can't just drag and drop things from Live2D into your game engine of choice. You need an SDK, a software development kit, to be able to translate Live2D models into something that can work in your engine. Not all engines are created equal though, and Unity and Unreal, which are engines that have been around for a long time, have official Live2D SDKs that presumably have been tested thoroughly and work well. This is not the case for Godot. Godot is a baby open source engine that only has a fan plugin that you need to build yourself. And God bless this person who made this plugin, but I am stupid. I'm an idiot who struggles with building stuff in command line, so it took me 2 days to build the plugin. And once I got the plugin working, there were a bunch of little bugs and things the plugin just couldn't do. For example, it couldn't build to web, meaning everyone who wanted to play the game would need to download it instead of playing it in browser. And I never like to do that for game jams. People are less likely to download some random file off of the internet in case it contains a virus. And speaking of virus, the plugin kept getting incorrectly flagged as a virus. Minnie couldn't even play the game because her computer kept blocking it. Why don't you just use Unity or Unreal? Unless I have truly no other option, I will not return to Unity. I did my time. It is simply no fun for me, and I don't trust like that anymore given what it's up to nowadays. And Unreal is like 150 gigabytes. It's such overkill. It is also no fun for me to use. I love Godot, I'm gonna stick with Godot. All of these issues, which weren't even related directly to developing the game, were eating up the development time for a game jam that I had already started late. And it was starting to throw me off my game. I thought this game jam would be easy. I've made a stat raiser before. I thought that this would be a chance to see how much I had improved as a developer and designer. But now, I wasn't so sure. Anyway, let's talk about the gameplay flow. Yippee! There are 3 main stats that the player can raise: art, craft, and marketing. Art and craft stats serve to inform how high quality you can make your merch, while marketing adds a multiplier to your final score. After a few days have passed, the game checks what your highest stat is and locks you into one of 3 routes. Each route has 2 main goals to hit. The first being raise X stat to 10 with 15 days remaining, and the other being make X amount of merch with 1 day remaining. It actually helped serve the dual purpose of poking the player in the right direction of how to play the game. It's a good idea to raise your stats before you make the merch, so your merch can be good quality when you make it. Each route also has 3 mini-events that occurred. Each mini-event had 2 choices. One choice which would give you energy, and another choice which would give you a boost to stats, but it would drain your energy. It gives some flavor/wiggle room for the player beyond pure min-maxing. I think that this design turned out pretty well, but it was something I came up with on the fly. There was basically no iteration in how it would work, and I didn't organize my notes for design or class structure or anything, so my code was kind of ass. Look, I have a main.gd file and a main_UI.gd file. And on top of that, just take a look at how I had my CGs be called in the game. It's 40+ individual functions that should be definitely condensed into one tiny function. Someone should write a call-out post on me. This is not good. I should be executed for this and never allowed near a keyboard again. One of the things that was giving me the most grief was the log UI system. For some context, pretty early on Mini had the awesome idea that the main game screen should look like the typical VTuber's just chatting screen. The log UI is meant to look like a chat, and even the alert pop-ups are reminiscent of alerts for donations and followers on a normal stream. Okay, so for some log chats, there is some flavor text, both to inform the player what was going on and to add a bit of personality and quote-unquote real-world context to the stats that you are seeing on your screen. In order to add this flavor text to the boxes, I wanted the chat boxes to be able to shift sizes. Increase if there were more flavor text that wouldn't fit into 3+ lines, decrease if it was less lines. Simple, no? Except it wasn't. For whatever reason, no matter how much I struggled, I just couldn't get those boxes to expand. Again, it should have been a simple thing, no? But it wasn't. And so I gave up and had the text only be 2 lines maximum. And honestly, maybe it made the game better for it, brevity being the wit of the soul and all, but it was so incredibly frustrating. This is obviously a thing that can be accomplished. It's such a basic UI thing that exists in other games, but I had messed up my setup so badly that I couldn't extrapolate a solution from my current systems. And it was pretty humiliating. Such a small thing, and I was crashing out over it. Why? Anyway, let's talk about the in-world lore. Did you know? Your Oshi is based off of a snowy plover. That's a seabird. In fact, her whole generation is seabirds. In the art route, when you draw her in Yuri with Rhino, it is actually a rhinoceros auklet, another seabird, not a rhinoceros. Snowy Plover's fan base are called Ploverlings, and Minnie even came up with cute little Ploverling design. Minnie actually came up with a whole-ass logo for Snowy Plover, gave her the full VTuber design walkthrough, and I adored it all. Minnie did an absolutely amazing job, I think, balancing Snowy Plover's design. She accomplished not making it too generic or too unique. Too generic and the player would not give a heck about her at all. Too unique and it feels like a whole-ass person that you don't have the context for and feel left behind by. It's harder than it looks to balance these sorts of things, and Minnie nailed it. Minnie wasn't the only person on this game jam with me, of course. Ven was as well. Ven came up with 4 lovely tracks to play throughout the game for the title screen, main game, ending sequences, and even the credits page. That plus a ton of sound effects and some Plover Foley that we didn't get to use was just, wow, amazing! Anything I asked of Ven, and they went above and beyond to deliver. 100 thank yous as always to the lovely Ven. While working with both Minnie and Ven, I just couldn't stop thinking, wow, they were so awesome! Just like Doki Jam, the last game jam I did with them. And just like Doki Jam, I felt like I was holding them back. This is where my clickbaity title comes in. My teams are amazing and peak at their craft, while I Well, for one, I'm easily discouraged. After we released our Doki Jam games, some comments noted some game issues with the character controller and gameplay design, and those things were my job. And I did those badly. The music in the game was great, the character sprites were stunning. Ben and Minnie could not have done a better job. They did their work correctly, but I could have done a better job. I made so many mistakes. And subconsciously, I think that anxiety was chasing me into this jam a bit. When the stat raiser genre was picked, it felt like a chance to redeem myself, prove I could make something cool. And then, when I was struggling on the design and code, it felt like I was just going to let my teammates down again. So Moka, why didn't you give up? I don't have a cool reason or moral or whatever for this. I'm just very stubborn. I try to finish what I start. And of course, I would never let down people in a group project. I will drag myself and my work across the finish line, bloody and bruised, if I must. And of course, thank goodness I didn't. I mean, of course I didn't. You can play the game, it is out. Check the link in the description. I stayed up until 4 a.m. to publish it with a Silent Hill F playthrough in the background, and then I woke up again at 9 a.m. to try and fix any bugs that people would have hopefully caught before the deadline and commented on. And despite all of this, I still had 2 text overflow issues! Stop commenting about them! I know! I beat myself up over it daily, but I can't finish it I can't fix it until the game, until the judges finish! So there's just the text, I know! But I guess if there is a fairy tale happy ending, it's that the game got good coverage at launch for a free browser game. Makes sense given that it's adorable and VTuber related, but if I took a shot for every VTuber that quote retweeted this game with some variation of, wow, oh my gosh, they made a game about me, I would be 6 feet under. It's stupid, but I did actually tear up a little bit seeing how much people enjoyed it. We got nice fan art, and the people in the Live2D Game Jam server in particular were so crazy nice. It just feels nice to be appreciated, you know? Thank you. Hopefully this didn't come off as too woe is me. I try and be #real about what I make, and recently I've gotten a lot of praise saying that I'm lucky to be this good at game development, or whatever, but the truth is that game development, like any project or skill set, is not smooth, and it is easy to feel like giving up all the time, no matter the size of the game. Some of my games go unexpectedly smoothly, like the Doki Jam, and some don't, like this one. I am really glad, as always, that I get to be making games. So happy, in fact, that I'm doing another game jam this upcoming weekend, and I really hope I finish this video before then, because if not, well, subscribe and leave a like or comment or whatever if you two are delusional enough to think that I will manage. See you when I see you, bye bye!